Open with the emotional ambush. Before you judge, listen. Before you decide who's wrong, hear this first before you decide who's right or who's wrong. Hear this first. Slow down. Because judgment moves fast, but truth does not. Most people rush to take sides because it feels safe to label things quickly. It gives the mind comfort. It makes chaos feel clean, but life is rarely clean. And the moment you rush to decide, you stop listening. Let me tell you something. The loudest opinions are often built on the least understanding. This story does not ask for your agreement. It asks for your attention, because once you truly hear it, you won't see it the same way again. You're not here to judge. You're here to witness you. We're not here to pass a verdict. You're here to witness what happens when real people face hard choices. Judgment builds distance. Witnessing builds connection. When you judge, you stay safe. When you witness, you feel. And feeling makes people uncomfortable. But growth lives there. Think about moments in your own life when someone looked at your situation from the outside and thought they understood everything. They didn't see the nights you stayed awake. They didn't feel the pressure you carried quietly. So for a moment, put the stones down. Just watch. Just listen. The story lives between silence and truth. This story lives in the space between silence and truth, between protection and damage, between fear and responsibility. Not everything hidden is meant to hurt. Not everything revealed heals right away. Sometimes silence is chosen to protect someone. Sometimes it slowly becomes a cage. That tension is where the story breathes. And it forces us to face an uncomfortable idea that good intentions can still leave scars, that love does not always choose the best path, and that truth, when delayed, grows heavier with time. Is silence always a lie or sometimes survival? Ask yourself this. Is silence always a lie or is it sometimes survival? We like simple answers. We like heroes and villains, but real life does not work that way. A mother hiding fear, a father avoiding shame, a person trying to hold life together with shaky hands. Silence can be a shield. It can also become a weight, and the longer it stays, the harder it is to put down. That question matters because it forces us to look inward, not outward. Everyone carrying a secret thinks they're alone. Everyone carrying a secret thinks they are the only one. They think no one else would understand. They think no one else has stood in that corner of fear. But look around. People hide pain at work. Parents hide worry from their children. People smile in public and struggle in private. Secrets isolate, even in crowded rooms. And the longer they stay hidden, the louder they echo inside. If you've ever carried something heavy in silence, this story is already touching you. When the truth finally surfaces, nothing stays the same. And when the truth finally comes out, nothing stays the same. Not relationships. Not trust. Not the person who held it. Truth does not tiptoe in. It shifts everything. It forces choices. It demands response. And once it appears, there's no return to before. That is where this story turns, because what happens next is not about the secret anymore. It's about who people choose to be when silence ends. The secret that wasn't simple. This wasn't just hiding a child. This was never a small secret. This was never a small secret. Not the kind people whisper about and move on from. This was life-altering. This was the kind of truth that changes how you wake up in the morning and how you fall asleep at night. When people hear a headline like this, they shrink it. They turn it into gossip because gossip feels manageable, but this wasn't casual. This wasn't careless. This was a choice that touched every part of life. And before you rush to simplify it, you need to understand something. Some secrets don't sit quietly. They take up space. They shape decisions. They demand silence. Every single day. People call secrets selfish until they're surviving one people love. To call secrets selfish. It's easy to say that from the outside. It's easy when you're not the one afraid of what truth might destroy. Survival doesn't always look brave. Sometimes it looks quiet. Sometimes it looks like choosing the least painful option in a moment where every option hurts. People judge with clean hands because they've never been forced into the corner. But when fear shows up, morals get tested. And suddenly, the question isn't what's right in theory, it's what keeps everything from falling apart today. You're already judging. Don't pretend you're already judging. Don't pretend you're not, we all do it. The mind wants order. It wants blame, it wants someone to point at so things feel settled. But listen closely. Judgment blocks learning, the moment you decide who's wrong. You stop seeing why it happened, and understanding doesn't mean agreement, It means honesty. If we can't be honest about how people end up here, we'll keep repeating the same damage in different forms. Isolation. Is the first price you pay isolation? Is the first price you pay for keeping a secret like this? Not all at once, slowly, quietly. Conversations change. Trust shrinks. You start editing your words. You laugh at things that don't feel funny. You nod through moments you don't belong in anymore. And even surrounded by people, you're alone with what you know, No one sees the full picture. No one carries the weight with you, and that kind of loneliness doesn't scream, it sits. Fear turns everyday life into permanent alert mode. Fear turns normal life into constant WATCHFULE. Every knock, every question, every birthday, every form. You're always scanning, always adjusting, always ready to explain without explaining too much. That kind of fear drains the body, it steals rest, it turns time into pressure. And the worst part is this. People think you're fine because you're still standing. They don't see how tired you are from holding everything together, carrying fire in your chest. Burns you first. Carrying a secret like this is carrying fire in your chest, it keeps others warm for a while. But it burns you first. Every year adds. Wait. Every unanswered question cuts a little deeper. Every moment you delay makes the truth heavier to lift. You tell yourself you'll handle it later, when things calm down, when the time feels right. But fire doesn't cool on its own, it spreads inward. 3 years of silence, what it costs to hold the truth alone. Time doesn't heal a secret, it trains it. Time doesn't heal a secret like this, it trains it, it teaches it how to hide better, how to survive longer. Each passing day doesn't make it easier. It makes it more practice. Silence becomes routine, fear becomes familiar, and the idea of speaking feels heavier than staying quiet. People think time fixes pain, but when truth is delayed, time tightens the grip instead of loosening it. Normal on the outside, breaking on the inside, on the outside, everything looks normal. Work gets done, bills get paid, smiles appear at the right moments. But inside, something is cracking. There's a split. One life people see, another life you carry alone. That split takes energy. Holding two versions of reality is exhausting, and no one claps for silent endurance. They only see the surface, they never see the cost. You don't hide the truth, you build your life around it. You don't just hide the truth, you build your life around it. Every plan bends around it. Every decision checks with it first. Where you go, what you say, who you trust. The truth becomes the center, even in silence. And slowly, it starts making choices for you, not because it's loud, but because it's always there. Protection can quietly become self-destruction at first. The silence feels protective. It feels like you're holding things together, but over time, protection can turn into self-harm, not on purpose, not out of cruelty, but from carrying too much alone for too long. You begin shrinking yourself to keep the peace. And peace built on silence always has a cost. Another year passed, another excuse. Another silence. Another year passed. Another excuse. Another silence. Birthdays came and went. Questions got harder. The truth got older, and the gap between now and then kept growing. Delay doesn't pause damage. It stacks it quietly, patiently, holding it alone. Doesn't make you strong. It makes you tired holding it. Alone doesn't make you strong. It makes you tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of planning. Tired of carrying something that was never meant to be carried by one person. Strength is not silence forever. Strength is knowing when silence has run its course. The moment, the past. Refuse to stay buried. The truth never asks if you're ready. The truth never asks if you're ready. It doesn't wait for comfort. It doesn't care about timing. It arrives when it arrives, and when it does, it doesn't whisper. People think they control when things come out. They don't. They only control how long they delay the moment. You bury doesn't stay quiet forever. What you bury doesn't stay quiet forever. It shifts. It presses upward. Silence has a breaking point. And when it breaks, it doesn't do so gently. The past doesn't fade just because you avoid it. It waits. The door didn't creak. It exploded when the truth surfaced. The door didn't creak. It exploded. No warning. No easing into it. Everything that was carefully balanced collapsed at once. And in that moment, control vanished. There was no script. No soft landing. This wasn't drama. This was collision. This wasn't drama. This was collision. Lives hitting truth at full speed. Shock. Silence. Breath. Held in the chest. This wasn't about reactions for show. This was real people standing in the wreckage of delayed truth. The past doesn't knock. It arrives. The past doesn't knock. It arrives. And when it does, it demands attention. No explanations. No filters. Just reality standing in front of you, waiting for a response. And now he knew, and now he knew. Everything changed in that instant, not because of what was done. His reaction wasn't what anyone expected. You expected rage, maybe even revenge. You expected anger, maybe even payback, because that's what most stories teach us to expect. When someone feels betrayed, the world assumes noise will follow. Raised voices, sharp words. Big reactions. That's the pattern people recognize. That's what gets attention. But real life doesn't always follow the pattern people are waiting for. Sometimes, the moment everyone thinks will explode goes quiet instead, and that quiet confuses people more than shouting ever could, because when someone doesn't react the way you expect, you're forced to look deeper. Shock hits first, not anger. Shock hits before anger ever does. When truth lands suddenly, the mind freezes. Thoughts scatter. The body pauses. That pause matters because feelings and actions are not the same thing. Feeling something does not mean you must act on it. He felt the weight. The confusion, the hurt, but he didn't let those feelings decide his next move. That separation is rare, and it's where strength begins to show. The loudest reactions are usually the weakest. The loudest reactions are often the weakest ones. Noise is easy. Control is hard. Anyone can explode. Anyone can say things they can't take back. But holding yourself steady when everything inside is shaking takes effort. Silence, in moments like this, is not weakness. It's restraint. It's the ability to pause instead of destroy. And that kind of control unsettles people because it can't be dismissed. Strength doesn't always shout. Strength doesn't always shout. Sometimes it breathes slowly. Sometimes it listens. Sometimes it waits. People confuse volume with power. They think force must be loud to be real. But the strongest people are often the calmest and the hardest moments. They don't rush to prove anything. They don't need to win the moment. They're focused on what comes after it. Let me tell you something. Real power pauses. Let me tell you something. Real power pauses. It doesn't rush to react. It doesn't hand control to emotion. Pausing gives you space. And space gives you choice. That pause is where Bad outcomes get stuck. It's where regret is avoided. It's where better paths stay possible. Not because the pain isn't real, but because it doesn't get to lead. This is the moment. Character is revealed. This is the moment character shows itself. Not when things are easy, not when life is fair, but when you're hurt and still choose how you respond. This moment wasn't about what happened before. It was about what kind of person would stand up now. Because reactions fade. Choices last. When pain meets responsibility. What a man chooses to become. Reaction is automatic. Choices, not reactions, happen fast. Choices take effort. Pain pushes the body to respond. Responsibility asks the mind to slow down. You don't control the first feeling, but you do control the next step, and that step shapes everything that follows. That's where growth lives. Not in pretending pain doesn't exist, but in refusing to let it decide everything. This decision will define who you are. Some decisions shape a single day, others shape who you become. This was one of those moments, not because people were watching, but because someone's future depended on it. What you choose in moments like this becomes part of you, long after the shock fades, long after emotions settle. This decision would stay. Pain explains behavior. It doesn't excuse it. Pain explains why people act certain ways. It does not excuse harm. Feeling hurt does not give permission to cause more damage. Understanding pain is not the same as allowing it to rule. Responsibility means holding yourself steady even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. You don't choose the storm, only the build after. You don't choose the storm that hits your life, but you do choose how you build after it passes. Some people burn everything down. Others rebuild with care. The storm reveals what kind of builder you are. And rebuilding takes patience. It takes thought. It takes restraint. If anger takes the wheel, everyone crashes. If anger takes control, everyone pays. Not just the person who's hurt. Families. Children. Futures. Anger doesn't drive carefully. It doesn't plan. It reacts, and reaction leaves damage behind. Responsibility steps in to stop the crash before it happens. Becoming better is harder than becoming bitter. Becoming better is harder than staying angry. Anger feels simple. Growth takes work, but only one of them builds something worth standing on. The child at the center. Innocence changes the equation. Everything changes when a child is involved. Everything shifts when a child is involved. Arguments fade. Pride shrinks. The focus moves because a child doesn't carry the past. They carry the future, and that future depends on adults making choices that protect, not punish. The child didn't lie. The child didn't choose. The child didn't lie. The child didn't choose this situation. They didn't create the silence. They didn't control the delay. They simply arrived in the middle of adult decisions, and that truth changes everything. Innocence carries a responsibility. Adults can't ignore innocence. Places weight on adults. Not emotional weight. Moral weight. It asks for care, for stability. For maturity. Children don't need perfection. They need adults who rise above personal pain. Fatherhood is action, not permission. Fatherhood is action, not a title, not a feeling. It's shown through presence. Through protection, through choices made when no one is forcing them. Being there matters more than words ever could. Ego asks, what about me? Duty asks, what about them? One voice asks what it loses. The other asks what the child needs. Only one of those voices leads to something lasting. Duty looks past self-interest. It looks forward. Who pays when adults don't rise? When adults don't rise, children pay. They carry the cost of grown decisions. And that is why this moment mattered more than anyone realized. The choice that shocked everyone. The decision was quiet. That's why it hit so hot. There was no outburst. No speech. No dramatic confrontation. That's what unsettled people. They expected noise. They expected anger to announce itself. Instead, the moment passed quietly, almost respectfully. And that silence spoke louder than any reaction could have, because real decisions don't need an audience. The defining action wasn't flashy. It didn't trend. It didn't invite applause. It happened in the space where character lives away from validation, away from witnesses. That's why it shocked everyone. Not because it was loud, but because it was calm. He didn't do what felt good. He did what was right. Doing what feels good is easy. Doing what's right costs something. He felt the anger. He felt the betrayal. He felt the pull to react the way everyone expected him to. But he didn't let emotion drive the wheel. He chose restraint, not because he was weak, but because he was clear. Right action rarely satisfies ego. It doesn't soothe pride. It doesn't offer instant relief, but it does something better. It builds a future you don't have to apologize for. He didn't choose comfort. He chose responsibility. Maturity makes people uncomfortable. People don't always cheer growth. Sometimes it threatens them. When someone chooses discipline over drama, it exposes how much chaos others excuse in themselves. When someone moves forward instead of retaliating, it disrupts the unspoken agreement that pain must be paid back. Maturity breaks the script, and when the script breaks, observers get restless because growth removes the villain they were counting on. Ownership moves forward. Revenge keeps you stuck. Revenge feels powerful, but it's stationary. It circles the same moment, replays the same hurt, keeps the past alive. Ownership does the opposite. Ownership accepts reality without worshiping it. It acknowledges pain without building a home inside it. It asks one question only: what's the next responsible step? And then it takes it without waiting for permission. That's movement, that's progress, that's freedom. He chose to build instead of burn. Burning is fast. Building is slow. Burning destroys the other person. Building transforms the self. He understood something most people miss. Destruction feels like power, but creation is power. So instead of lighting the match, he laid a foundation. Not for revenge, for stability, for tomorrow. Choice didn't just change the moment. It redirected the entire story. Sometimes the strongest response is silence. Silence isn't avoidance. It's control. It's the ability to stand in emotion without being ruled by it. To feel everything and still choose wisely. Not every moment deserves a reaction. Some moments demand restraint. And when silence comes from strength, it echoes longer than anger ever could. Why most people would have failed this moment? Most people think they'd handle this better. They're wrong. Everyone believes they'd rise to the occasion. Until the occasion arrives. Pressure doesn't build character, it reveals it. And most people don't prepare for moments like this. They fantasize about being right, not about being responsible. That's why so many fail when it counts. Pride is the first trap. Pride whispers, you can't let this slide. It confuses dignity with dominance. It demands a response, not because it's wise, but because it's visible. Pride wants witnesses. Pride wants victory. Pride wants the last word. And pride rarely cares about the aftermath. Applause feels like justice until it ruins everything. Public validation is addictive. When others cheer your reaction, it feels justified, even noble, but applause fades. Consequences done. Single quotes. Claps don't clean up damage. Approval doesn't undo harm. Cheers don't build character. Most people choose reactions that look good instead of actions that are dead. Punishment often disguises itself as morality. People call it accountability, but it's really anger in formal clothing. Punishment can feel righteous while still being driven by ego. It pretends to serve justice while secretly feeding resentment. True accountability is quiet. Measured. Forward. Looking. Anything else is just revenge with better language. Impulse is easy. Discipline is rare. Anyone can react. Few can respond. Reaction is instinct, response is skill. Discipline requires pause. Pause requires strength, and strength requires practice long before the moment arrives. That's why most people fail here, not because they're evil, but because they're untrained. Anyone can react. Few can respond. Reaction proves you were hurt. Response proves you are in control. That difference defines leaders from followers, adults from children, builders from burners, and it's a difference most people never learn to respect. This story isn't about them. It's about you. This is where the story turns. Toward you up until now, it was easy to watch. To judge. To analyze. To nod along. But this moment isn't about him anymore. It's about you. What truth are you avoiding right now? What conversation are you delaying? What responsibility are you postponing? What reality are you hoping will resolve itself? Avoidance feels harmless until it compounds. Silence doesn't erase truth. It feeds it. Secrecy, fear, and growth are always connected. What we hide controls us. Fear thrives in the dark. Growth requires exposure, not public humiliation, but private honesty. The moment you stop pretending is the moment. Progress begins. Not dramatically. Not instantly, but truthfully. Ownership doesn't require shame. Taking responsibility isn't self-destruction. It's self-respect. You don't have to hate yourself to correct yourself. You don't need punishment to grow. You need clarity and the courage to act on it. Face what you're delaying, or it will face you. Time doesn't wait for readiness. What you avoid doesn't disappear. It gains leverage. Sooner or later, every unresolved truth demands attention. The only question is whether you meet it standing or scrambling. What you avoid grows. What you face shrinks. That's the rule. Pain ignored multiplies. Pain confronted loses power. This story was never about spectacle. It was about choice. And now that choice is yours. Final wake-up call. The cost of delay is always higher. Let's be clear. Waiting has a price. Let's be clear. Waiting has a cost. Every day you delay, the weight grows. Every day you push action aside. The moment you should have owned becomes harder. Delay doesn't protect you. It allows fear, doubt, and confusion to gain ground. The longer you wait, the steeper the climb. This isn't about punishment. It's about consequence. And understanding that now is the only way to move forward with clarity. Comfort feels safe until consequences arrive. Comfort tricks you into thinking nothing will go wrong. It whispers, later, another time, not today. But comfort is temporary. Eventually, consequences arrive. They don't ask permission. They don't check your readiness. And when they do, the price for ignoring them is always higher than facing them early. Safety is an illusion when action is overdue. True strength comes from choosing responsibility, even when comfort tempts you to wait. Time doesn't wait for courage. Time doesn't pause for readiness. It moves forward. Regardless of fear, doubt, or hesitation, every second you delay, opportunity shrinks. Every moment you avoid truth or responsibility, the chance to act grows more difficult. Courage isn't about feeling ready. It's about moving anyway. And the clock doesn't care if you're prepared. It just ticks. In its rhythm. Moments pass that will never come back. Do not wait for perfect conditions. Do not wait for perfect conditions. Perfection doesn't exist. Life doesn't align itself for comfort or convenience. Waiting for the right moment is a trap. The right moment is created by action. And those who act, even imperfectly, shape what comes next. Hesitation is easy. Action is rare. Choose to act now, even if it feels messy. The results will be cleaner than regret. Emotional maturity is choosing now. Emotional maturity is not about suppressing feelings. It's about making the choice in spite of them. It's knowing that pain, fear, or anger cannot make decisions for you. Maturity is the courage to act when hesitation is easier Dot, it is taking responsibility, standing firm, and moving forward without delay. This moment is yours. Choosing now is what separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. Dot, closing message. Be the person this moment demands. This moment is asking something of you. This moment is asking something of you. Dot, not tomorrow. Dot, not when you feel ready. Right now, it asks for honesty, for responsibility, and for courage. Dot, it asks you to rise above comfort, above excuses, and above fear. Dot, every choice you make today echoes far beyond this moment. This is not optional. Dot, it is the moment that shapes who you are. Choose responsibility over reaction. Choose responsibility over reaction. Reaction is quick, loud, and fleeting. Dot, responsibility is deliberate, steady, and lasting. Dot, it asks you to pause, reflect, and act with thought. Dot, it asks you to protect what matters instead of venting what hurts. Dot, this is where true strength lives. Dot, not in the heat of emotion, but in the clarity of choice. Dot, growth begins where ego ends. Growth begins when you stop thinking about yourself first. When ego steps aside, you can see what needs to be done. You can act without defending, without justifying, without waiting for recognition. The moment you let go of self-interest, you find real power, power that builds, nurtures, and protects. Your response will outlive your pain. Your response matters more than the hurt you feel. Pain is temporary. Regret is permanent. The choices you make now, the courage, the discipline, the integrity will outlive the moment, the anger, and the shock. Dot, it will echo in everything that follows. Dot, so stand. Dot, decide. Dot, act. Dot, because how you respond will define more than today. It will define who you become.